Ranjan Ramanayake sentenced to 4 years of rigorous imprisonment. The government to inquire into the sugar scam if a complaint is lodged. 4 people arrested for illegally selling rented vehicles. PCR test to be conducted on parliamentarians tomorrow. Hello there and welcome to Lunchtime News here on TV1. You're joining me, David Paldano. Now on to headline making stories this afternoon. MP Ranjan Ramanayake was sentenced to 4 years of rigorous imprisonment by the Supreme Court for committing contempt of court.
The case is called up today in the presence of Supreme Court Justices Sisira Diabru, Vijit Malalgoda and P. Padman Surasena. Chair of the Supreme Court bench, Justice Sisira Diabru, delivering the verdict, finding the parliamentarian guilty, said the prosecution had proven beyond any reasonable doubt that Ranjan Ramanayake had committed contempt of court in his comments to the media on judges and lawyers on the 21st of August 2017 close to Temple Trees in Colombo. Justice Diabru further said the MP had purposely made the comments and it was proven from the comments he made after leaving court proceedings on multiple occasions. The Attorney General filed charges against Ranjan Ramanayake pursuant to a complaint by retired Army Officer Sunil Pereira alleging the statement made by Ranjan Ramanayake opposite Temple Trees on the 21st of August 2017 was in contempt of court.
Co-Cabinet spokesperson Minister Udaya Gamampilla stated this morning that if there is any corruption in the importation of sugar, a formal complaint should be lodged. The minister stated this while addressing a virtual media briefing this morning. Journalists inquired from Minister Udaya Gamampilla regarding the allegations levelled by various parties, including the opposition, regarding the alleged fraud committed in the importation of sugar. In response, the minister said if they have been accused, there should be evidence. They should log a formal complaint with the law enforcement agencies. Now, moving on to more local news, Cabinet has approved the purchase of 200 buses for short distance travel for the convenience of passengers. This decision was made following a proposal made by the Minister of Transport. These buses are to be purchased in line with the forthcoming launch of a state-of-the-art public transport service with parking facilities in Colombo and its suburbs. Meanwhile, the Cabinet also made a decision to extend the deadline which was agreed upon to make the salary payments to private sector employees. The decision was made according to a proposal made by the Minister of Labour. Accordingly, the grace period, which ends on the 31st of December 2020, was extended to the end of March. Meanwhile, a tense situation arose at this year's inaugural session of the Balangoda Urban Council. The balance of power that has risen from defeating the budget twice was the reason for the tense situation. The Balangoda Urban Council used to operate with a majority of UNP and SLFP members. However, now the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramana holds the majority of the council. In more headline-making stories, Sri Lanka police have uncovered information on a large-scale vehicle fraud committed through the sale of vehicles obtained on rent by forging documents. Police spokesperson DIG Ajit Rohana said the Mulleriyawa police have arrested 4 suspects and apprehended vehicles worth more than 70 million rupees.
The incident was revealed during a raid carried out by a team led by Mulleriya OIC Chief Inspector Kalvitarana. Police said that 16 cars and a van were taken into custody. According to the police, the crime was committed by selling the vehicles obtained by providing fake documents to rental companies within a few days. During the raid, vehicle parts were also taken into police custody. Police suspect that these organized criminals have also sold vehicle parts. Two suspects, resident of Yakkala and Meerigama, were arrested during the raid.
ඔබේ වාහනයත් මේ ආකාරයට නැති වෙලා තියෙනවා ඔබට පුළුවන් මුල් ඒරියාව පොලිසියට ගොස්
If your vehicle has been misplaced in the recent times, you can go to the Mulleriava police station and inquire about it, or else you can contact the officer in charge of the Mulleriava police station through his mobile phone number 071 859 1653. From this investigation, it has been revealed that he had handed over the vehicle by getting some documents. We have not yet identified the person behind this racket. It is important as a rent-a-car businessman that you keep copies of the photographs of the documents before handing over a vehicle, or else you will be victimized to these types of rackets. The suspects who had been arrested so far will be kept in the custody of the police for further investigations, and later they will be presented to the courts.
නියමිතව තිබෙනවා ඒ වගේම ඉන් පසුව ඔවුන් අධිකරණය වෙත ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා.
Meanwhile, in more headline-making stories, all members of Parliament are to undergo a PCR test tomorrow. These members who are unable to take part in tomorrow's PCR test will be tested on the 15th of this month.
Dayasiri Jayasekara, Rauf Hakim and Vasudeva Nayanayakara have already been tested positive for COVID-19. Dhammika Disanayaka, the Secretary General of the Parliament, stated that all places where these members had come into contact within Parliament have been disinfected. Meanwhile, Parliamentary Sergeant at Arms Narendra Fernando stated that all members of Parliament were informed last afternoon to undergo a PCR test. Accordingly, the Sergeant at Arms stated that MPs, staff members and members of the security forces will be able to undergo PCR tests tomorrow or on the 15th of January. Nearly 25 members of Parliament have been directed to self-quarantine. The Working Committee on Parliamentary Affairs are to meet tomorrow to decide on the future sittings of the House.
Now, in your COVID-19 update this afternoon, the Director General of Health Services confirmed that 8 COVID-19 deaths were reported in the country yesterday, raising the COVID-19 fatalities in Sri Lanka to 240.
The deceased are a 52-year-old male prisoner at the Valikata prison. The cause of the death was ruled as COVID-19 pneumonia. A 61-year-old male from Rajagiriya had passed away upon admission to a private hospital in Colombo on the 7th of January. The cause of the death was ruled as COVID-19 pneumonia and acute diabetes. A 45-year-old male from Mattakulia had passed away at the National Hospital in Colombo on the 8th of January. The cause of the death was ruled as COVID-19 pneumonia. A 51-year-old male from Colombo 14 was identified as a COVID-19 infected person at the National Hospital in Colombo and was moved to the Homagama Base Hospital, where he passed away on the 10th of January. The cause of the death was ruled as COVID-19 pneumonia. A 70-year-old female from Bandaragama was identified as a COVID-19 infected person at the Kalutara General Hospital and was later moved to the Homagama Base Hospital, where she passed away on the 10th of January. The cause of death was ruled as COVID-19 pneumonia and acute kidney disease. A 67-year-old male from Kalutara South was identified as a COVID-19 infected person at the Kalutara General Hospital and was later moved to the IDH, where he passed away on the 10th of January. The cause of the death was ruled as COVID-19 pneumonia and blood poisoning. A 57-year-old male from Kathankudi was identified as a COVID-19 infected person at the Batiklo Teaching Hospital and was later moved to the Valikanda Base Hospital, where he passed away on the 11th of January. The cause of death was ruled as COVID-19 pneumonia and blood poisoning. Another 568 new COVID-19 cases were confirmed yesterday, thereby raising the total of COVID-19 cases in the country to 48,949. There are 6,626 active COVID-19 patients receiving treatment, while 42,091 have recovered.
The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 Vaccination Plan and the National Development, in a meeting held yesterday afternoon, has decided that the number of vaccination centres distributing injections will be increased from 4,000 to 5,000. Secretary to the Ministry of Primary Health Services, Epidemiology and Disease Control and COVID-19, Dr. Amal Harsha De Silva, said that a decision was reached at a meeting to train the vaccination health staff and register those who require the vaccine. He said that steps will be taken to bring down to Sri Lanka any vaccine given to control COVID-19 as soon as possible. Chairman of the task force, former Secretary to the President Lalit Birutunga, Army Commander General Shavendra Silva, Secretary to the Ministry of Health and other officials took part in the discussion. A group of parents of the Hidogama Kaluvilla Sena Mahavidyalaya in Anuradhapura engaged in a protest.
Hidogama Kaluvila Sena Mahavidyalaya in Anuradhapura is a school that has been named under the national school concept. However, the parents point out that the school has not been named as a national school. They allege that another school in the area has been turned into a national school at the request of a politician. The protest, which started at 7 this morning, lasted for nearly 2 hours. A heated situation arose after the relevant politician arrived at the location. Meanwhile, the All Ceylon Dengue Prevention Assistance Association held a protest yesterday. The demonstrators who protested in front of the Ministry of Health demanded that to confirm the services of the dengue control assistants who have completed the service period properly. After failed discussions between the protesters and the administration officials of the Health Ministry, the protesters blockaded the Dean's Road. After failed discussions with the Minister of Health, Pavitra Varnayarachi, the protesters marched in front of the Presidential Secretariat. According to our correspondent, despite the request made by the security officials for the protesters to disperse, they resumed the demonstration in front of the Presidential Secretariat.
A welcoming ceremony for the chief prelate of the Sri Lanka Ramya sect, Most Venerable Makulave Vimalathero, was held today.
The event was organised by the Welfare Society of the Hapitigama Jayasumanarama Temple under the patronage of the chief incumbent of the Hapitigama Moola Mahavihara, Venerable Makkanigoda Assaji Thera. Presently, 5 or 6 Theros have been killed within 2 months. Sometimes the piety of the donors in the temples deteriorate to a point where they have become malicious enough to even murder Theros over small disagreements. I should say it is not everyone, but a very few have reached this level of malice. This is a time when even bhikkhus have to live extremely carefully.
On to your weather update this afternoon. The Department of Meteorology states that showers exceeding 100 millimeters could occur in the northeast, north central, Hoover and central provinces.
The Department of Irrigation states that 20 out of 73 irrigation reservoirs are currently overflowing due to the prevailing rainy weather. Meanwhile, 6 sluice gates of the Cowdilla Reservoir have been opened this morning. 1,950 cubic feet of water per second is being released into the Cowdilla Oya. Meanwhile, 2 sluice gates of the Natchaduwa Reservoir opened this morning. 1,243 cubic feet of water per second is released into the Malwa Oya.
News First. The truth as it is.
And with that, we wrap up lunchtime news here on TV1. For more news, log on to our award-winning website, that is www.newsfirst.lk. For the News First team, I'm David Paldano. Take care.